Take DJ and PK wherever you go. Find every moment of every show in podcast form by searching DJ and PK on your favorite platform. This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's time to talk hockey now with Cole Bagley, brought to you by Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. Cole, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good. Better than the Utah Hockey Club. These are tough times. These are hard times. And I am struck by the similarities, and maybe it's more superficial, and maybe there's really something to it. And so I think we should start there. Last year, the team famously lost 14 in a row. And it was in the middle of the season, and they had a good stretch before that, and they had a good stretch at the end. But in the middle, it was bad. And we were told when they moved here, part of that was, well, there was the rumors leaked, and it's a young team, and it really rocked them. And, all right, I'm not there. That makes sense. Okay, we'll go with it. Well, we're at a similar part of the season. This is a little earlier. And they're in a stretch where they're losing 10 to 12. Is that a coincidence? Does one thing have nothing to do with the other? Is there something about the age and the way this team is built, this is happening, or it's just coincidence? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a direct correlation with that losing streak last season. Obviously, things are not going the way that the team would like them to right now, but it's not quite to the extent of a 14-game losing streak. They still have won a few games here and there, but yeah, it's a bad stretch. They've lost 8 of the last 10, and they're on a 7-game homestand, and they've only won 1 of 4 so far with 3 to go. And so, I think if there was a clear-cut answer, I think they would know how to resolve it. But in talking to some of the more experienced guys, veteran guys like Ian Cole and Oli Mata, Alexander Kerfoot, the last 2 days, what they kind of feel is that there's 2 things going on. They lack consistency, which is obvious, but I think diving a little bit deeper into that, they have not been able to play a full 60 minutes of hockey. When you watch their games, they're playing pretty darn good for 40 minutes, but then things go off the rail generally in the second, and when it's not in the second, it's either in the first or the third. And so it's figuring out how to play a full 60 minutes of hockey. If they can do that, they'd probably be in a lot better situation. And the other thing is maturity. That's one thing that Ian Cole talked about is, this is a young team, and so it's learning how to handle these ups and downs, how to handle their emotions, and how do they respond to those things. And the two kind of coincide, right? If they were, if there was a little bit more maturity, if there was a little bit more experience, they probably wouldn't be playing, as poorly for 20 to 30 minutes a night. So, yeah, there's a lot to kind of pick apart, but that seems to be kind of the simple answers, if you will.
That's the thing that gives us a sense of, it's not as bad now. You're judged by your record. That's a cliche in sports. You are what your record says you are. But it's not like they're getting bludgeoned. So they're playing well, but they're not playing well enough to win. And I think that is different than not playing well and losing. So can you take some momentum from that, knowing that you are playing well, you're playing okay, but you're not playing well enough to win, as opposed to really just flat out sucking?
Yeah, for sure. They're still a 500 team, which is exactly what the front office expected of them this season. So it's not like they're, like you said, it's not like they're getting blown out every night. It's not like they're 10 or 15 games under 500 like some of the bottom feeders in the NHL, and they're only 6 points still out of a potential playoff spot. And so that's kind of why I've talked about how important the month of January is. If they can still be close come February, then they still have a shot. So that's kind of the silver lining here is, as bad as they've played as of late, they're still close. If they can maybe fine tune a few things, if they can get if John Marino can get up to speed and get back to his normal self, and maybe they get Sean Dursey back for the final month of the season, and we'll see what comes here in the next few weeks in terms of the trade deadline. If they feel that they want to make a push, they have the assets to go and make something happen. It doesn't necessarily mean that they want to go that direction, but there's still, all is not lost. There's still opportunities for them to figure it out. There's still chances for them to compete for a playoff spot. And so, if they can figure things out here towards the back half of January, they can still be in a decent spot in a place that they want to be to try to make a push for the playoffs.
I just had some bad math I need to correct. I said 10 of 12. It is 9 of 11. And even that's not precise because you pick up points with the shootout loss, for instance, to Anaheim, and the OT loss to Dallas. So it's 6 points in the last 11 games. So just to clear that up. Now, I want to go on something you just said there. They're 6 points back. How quickly do teams tend to make up points in the NHL? What is a margin that makes you think, hey, everything's up in the air? And what's a margin where you think I'm used to watching baseball pennant races, so I have a little bit of a feel for that. Mm-hmm. But what's a number? I was talking with Adrian Denny, who does the pregame and postgame, and we were talking about teams that were in, and I think was it San Jose maybe? Somebody was 10 points back, and he said, man, halfway through the season, 10 points, and they got to jump over 4 teams. Sure, it could happen, but it's not likely to. Now, here's a team that's 6 back, and you got 3 to jump over. Well, I guess you're alongside 1, basically. At what point does the scale tip and you're like, all right, now you're getting out of range here?
Yeah, I think when you get into, kind of that early range is that 10-point spread. That's 5 wins, right? And only 5 wins, but you need, other teams ahead of you to start losing. And so you start to get to that 10 to 15-point range, and it gets really tough. But 6 is not a death sentence. It's not, hey, we're out of this. It's 3 games, and in that short order, other teams can drop 1 or 2, and you're right there. And so that's historically speaking, there's been a lot of situations where teams will go on hot streaks towards the end of a season. The Pittsburgh Penguins back in 2016, 2017, they were one of the worst teams in the National Hockey League at the point in December. Now, it did take nearly perfect hockey, but they went from one of the worst teams in the NHL to making the playoffs and winning the Stanley Cup. Now, I'm not saying that the Utah Hockey Club is going to replicate that, but it is doable. And so it requires a lot. It takes perfect hockey in a sense in some scenarios, but luckily Utah has not put themselves in that in that area. It's not like, oh man, they got to win 60-70% of their final games, and there's only a month left. It's okay, there's plenty of time, there's plenty of games left, and if they can go on one of those hot streaks, pick up 10 or 12 points over the span of 4 or 5 games, suddenly you're in business. So, yeah, I would have to agree with him there. Once you get to that, kind of 10 to 15 point mark behind, it is hard to make up ground. So right now they're still okay. But, if they can't pick up some wins here over the back half of this homestand, that's when they're going to be facing a really tough task.
I heard GM Bill Armstrong talk about, you just mentioned it, the trade deadline coming up, a lot of stuff that they have available in terms of assets, but you got to be careful about that because you don't want to give away these assets. At the same time, if you can think you can improve your club now, you do that. What level of confidence or intrigue do you think this particular situation has for the club in terms of them making a move?
Yeah, in those interviews, Bill has said that, it's going to be dependent on kind of how things go over the next little stretch, how they're feeling going into February and how they go into the later part of February, right before the trade deadline in the first week of March. And so it's dependent on a couple things. How are they performing? Are they picking up points? Are they, kind of shaking off this tough stretch where they're losing 80% of the games that they're playing over the last 10? Or, do they kind of flip the script a little bit, stack up some wins, pick up some points, and put themselves in a scenario where they're already competing for a playoff spot, and Marino's getting back up to speed, Ingram's getting back up to speed, and yesterday, coach said that it's looking like they're going to get Sean Dursey back for the final month of the season. So, like you said, you don't want to give away assets unless you feel like it's an opportunity to make your team better. With that being said, there are some situations with teams where decent players are up for grabs. One of those is the Vancouver Canucks with Elias Pettersson and JT Miller, who are not necessarily high power forwards, not guys that are putting up 40 or 50 points, but both of them are good offensive guys, especially Pettersson. And so not saying that there's anything linked to that right now, but Utah has the assets to get involved in that conversation if they wanted to, or if there's other guys throughout the league that become available that the front office feels would greatly improve their situation, help improve the team. Utah potentially has one of the deepest pools of assets in terms of draft picks, in terms of young players, in terms of young prospects. And so, yeah, if they get, find themselves in a situation where a trade is possible, regardless of who that is, they have the ability to make an enticing offer. They still have a plethora of draft picks. They have extra draft picks, several second, third, and fourth round selections that they could, turn into a deal. They also have a lot of young guys in their pool. Now, there's some of those guys that you probably wouldn't want to give up, like a TJ Ginla or a Daniel Boat and Simashev, a couple guys that you just really wouldn't want to have to let go. But they have the ability to do it, and it's just going to be dependent, I think, on how do the next few weeks go. Do they put themselves in a shot to make a push for the playoffs, or do the wheels kind of come off a little bit more and they go, well, unless a deal comes across our way that we just can't say no to, looking in the long terms of things, it just doesn't make sense to give up assets.
When I watch the games, sometimes I can feel it's like I can feel just this level of intensity they're bringing. They play so many one-goal games, right? And they're trying to get that goal so they at least get a point, get one more goal so they get 2 points, get the win. And it's awesome because as a sports fan, you want to feel that, right? You want to feel that, or why are you watching? But it also makes me think these guys, they need more talent. And maybe some of that just comes with experience. But do they just need more talent? I mean, they're literally just wringing everything they can out of the washcloth. And how much more is there to get? Because I feel like, you can almost see the heart beating through their chest as they try to grind out that last goal.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the two. They're one of the youngest teams in the National Hockey League. They've got half their forwards are under the age of 25. Two of their star young players, in Logan Cooley and Dylan Gunther, are 20 and 21. And so, with more experience, with more time, I think those guys are going to be able to figure out how to produce at a high level, but not completely gas themselves, not completely wipe themselves out. And I think that's part of the issue and why they are losing some of these close games and why they're unable to put together a full 60 minutes is, there are key stretches where they've got to give everything they have to stay in it. And, other teams don't necessarily have to, and they've got, more depth. And, like you said, I think they do need some more skill on this team. I think they do need more offensive firepower. Over the last 10 games, they've been outscored heavily. I believe I want to say it's 34-20 over the last 10 games. And so, that's tough to win hockey games. You're not going to win hockey games when you're almost giving up twice the amount of goals in a 10-game stretch. Defensively, I think they've been fine. That goal differential is not completely honest in terms of the fact they've allowed a lot of open net goals. Because there are 1-goal games, they pull the goalie, they don't get it, and the other team puts it in their net. And so, firepower definitely is, in my mind, where this team needs to improve the most. Without Dylan Gunther right now, outside of that top line, they're not getting a ton of production. It's hard for them to put the puck in the back of the net on that second, that third, and that fourth line. Obviously, you get Dylan back, and things were a little bit different. The top two lines, I'd say, were were pretty consistently producing. But you get down into that third and fourth, and fourth lines aren't going to be overly productive, but you just need more. You need more from the third and a little bit more from the fourth. And right now they just don't necessarily have that. So I think it's a combination of the two. Of this team is still learning, still growing, still developing. But yeah, I mean, they need more offensive minded forwards that can consistently help, put points on the board.
Well, Cole, as always, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for joining us, talk a little hockey and the New York Rangers. That just has a good sound, doesn't it? I mean, it's not like they win the most. Their inability to win at all for stretches has been a legendary story. But the Rangers, that just sounds big time. It's the New York Rangers.
Yeah.
Original six.
Yeah, big. That's a big name team. Original six, and New York. It's like you said. It feels incredible, and it's crazy that the New York Rangers are in town to play hockey against a club, an NHL club that belongs to Utah. It's fantastic. So looking forward to it.
Thank you, Cole. Enjoy the game.
Thank you, guys.
Cole Bagley, join us every week here on The Zone. Every Thursday, we're talking with hockey with him. DJ and PK. Everything you missed in this show, and a little breaking news, sad news. It was a great run. We will get to that next.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
According to ESPN, who put together a way too early list, ranking the best fits for committed transfer portal quarterbacks, how are you going to know if they fit until you actually figure it out? On this list, by the way, now here's where it's interesting. Devin Dampier, you know where he came from, New Mexico to Utah. So Utah on this list has the number 2 quarterback best fit, number 1 on the list. John Mateer, Washington State's quarterback from last year. It is actually less expensive for you to go out and get that hot offensive coordinator and to get him to pull that quarterback with you than it would be just to go get that one quarterback. The value is tremendous. You get a great offensive coordinator, hopefully.
What he's done has worked.
Yes, but do you see the economics of this? Get a phenomenal hot offensive coordinator and you're going to pay half of what these quarterbacks are going for.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.